Today on the show, we welcome Nicole Tito, a renowned paranormal investigator, author, and creator of GhostlyVoices.com. Growing up on the Southside of Chicago, Nicole was surrounded by numerous ghost stories that inspired her lifelong passion for the paranormal. Now with over 100 investigations to her name and a talent for capturing compelling audio evidence, she brings a wealth of experience to the show. In this segment, we'll delve into the world of ghost hunting, discussing essential equipment, and exploring haunted locations in Illinois, where Nicole has documented some of her most intriguing findings. All right, so I am joined with Nicole Tito. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
So you are a paranormal investigator. Is that what you would describe yourself?
Yeah, and actually I'm an author, so I've just written 2 books in the past year, but I've been doing investigations almost 20 years, not to date myself. Wow. But I was just looking at my count, I think I'm up to 115, across the country, a lot in the Chicago. Investigations.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So
wow.
Keeps me busy.
That you're keeping track of them.
Yeah, I'm a project manager by day, so I feel like I track a lot of things with my paranormal. I'm like, okay, I was here, here's the date, here's the time.
Wow, so over 100 investigations spread across 20 years. Now, you're an author. You said you've written the 2 books. What is kind of the topic of those books? Yeah,
so my first one, I love audio evidence. So I always try to capture EVPs or disembodied voices when I go. But recently in the last few years, I've been doing more of the Estes method, which is relatively new to the paranormal world. I think back in 2016, it was kind of quote unquote discovered. But if you think about it, it's like a sensory deprivation. So that's been, around for thousands of years. So the book focuses on Estes method, how to conduct EVP sessions, how to listen to your audio. And then the other book I put out with my husband, Al, is 101 plus everyday ghost hunting items. So stuff you can literally take from your house and bring on an investigation.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Is it 101 items?
It's actually 125.
Oh my gosh. And it's... I'm trying to think, what 125 unique items do
I mean,
have
some
in my house?
some of them people really, would you have that in your home? But some people do. There's the basics, your cameras, your audio recorders, your monitors and things like that. But, a lot of people, if you're a fireman, you might have a flare. In volunteer fire department. Okay. So people might have those heat detecting systems, your carbon monoxide detecting systems, which sound a little goofy, but if there's a change in the atmosphere, maybe it's not paranormal. Maybe it's something that's going on in somebody's home that can be explained. And there's things like flour. Put flour on the ground to see if you can get footsteps, to see if things can get moved. So we tried to get creative, my husband and I, because I know when I started 20 years ago, it was expensive, and it's still expensive to buy ghost hunting equipment. Yeah. So, you can use some things in your house and save some money, and then you can, buy things that you potentially want. Sure. I'm sure all this audio equipment and cameras are not cheap.
No, not at all. So, especially I would imagine stuff that's marketed towards ghost hunting. Mm-hmm. So, has equipment changed much in the 20 years that you've been investigating?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like there's more available, especially with your EMF detectors, and there's so many more cameras if you think about it. The cool thing is there's a lot more tutorials on how to make equipment. Yeah. So my husband got an old GoPro, relatively cheap, and he was able to modify it to make it to a full spectrum.
Oh, wow.
And then the same thing the Xbox Connect, the older one we had.
Okay.
We modified it to be an SLS camera,
wow.
Which... what's the SLS? I think $300-400, and we did it for maybe $75 on that.
Just for the price of a Connect, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then you need a little separate plug that you have to buy. Okay. But the good SLS cameras I think are now $500-600 if you want memory.
Oh my goodness.
So you could get very creative, and I tell people, I think I'm old school. Sometimes you don't have to have the latest, greatest, bring your your phone does recording. Sure. Your phone does video, audio. You have to be careful because it can interfere with some equipment, but use what you have. And then if you want to get something, you definitely can, but it gets expensive.
I know. What are your thoughts? And I've seen this is really popular on apps like TikTok, YouTube Shorts. People will be in a cemetery at night, and they're not necessarily like solely using like the camera device on their phone. They're using, I don't know, they call it like a ghost box or something. It's like an app that you download.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, the legitimacy of those apps? Because you're kind of describing like very physical equipment, like your camera, your microphone recording device, like very like physical and mechanical things. What do you think about like software?
We've had some success with different apps. I know Gross Radar is a popular one, and there's so many. I know some are free, some are like 99 cents, $2.99. The only thing with those, it's like, I don't know, and I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer, I don't know how they were coded.
Right.
And it's like, you know, with any piece of equipment, how do I know how a spirit's going to interact with it? So how do I know if even my audio recorder, it's going to know to talk into it? So it's like, I hope they're not manipulated to like create responses, but I don't know the coding of them. Like, and you know, and I don't know how many words go into those. You know, at least with my auto recorder, if I get a voice, it's not like pre-programmed to like 1,000 words or something. So it's hit or miss. I say use them, you know, with an idea in the back of your mind. It might not be the most accurate, but hey, if your app's going off, if you're feeling kind of ooky, if maybe you have another piece of device and something's going on.
Maybe in conjunction with other kind of
because
equipment.
when you go to places, you start to, you don't have to be a psychic or anything. You start to kind of feel like, ooh, something's happening or something's not right. Like that
Say
hair.
It's like the energy or something like that. Or
and
static.
I think so. And I think people get used to that the more they investigate, and they're like, ooh, something's off. Because my husband was the biggest skeptic, and he was like, rah, 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 rah. And the very first investigation he went into, he wandered off, which you shouldn't do, by himself. And I think he scared the out of himself because his light went off, didn't have a backup, was downstairs in this boiler room, and he heard something, and it wasn't us. So I think he quickly learned, like, okay, there might be something to this.
That is so neat. Wow, 150. You mentioned you have a book that's about the Estes method. You mentioned it's kind of like, what did you say, like visual deprivation or sensory deprivation?
Yeah, sensory deprivation.
What do you mean by it? Because I think of maybe like a sensory deprivation tank. Or
I mean, you could probably do it in a tank if you could bring a tank around. But no, in all seriousness, so you have like you should have one operator, they call them, and one receiver. Okay. So the operator's kind of the person running the session. They're going to be the ones asking questions, kind of monitoring the environment. And then the receiver is the one that's in the sensory deprivation. So she will be wearing headphones. We typically say noise reducing or isolating, just because cancellating, you might cancel out things that you potentially want to hear.
Okay.
And then that person that's receiving, they should have like a blindfold on. We've been using actually like the Google... I shouldn't even say Google. They're just goggles that are like LED that create kind of that Gansfield experiment type of effect. And then that person who's wearing the headphones is plugged into like a white noise receiver. So a Spirit Box, the Radio Shack Hacks, SB11, SB7, whatever you have. And they don't hear anything except what's coming through that device that they're using. So they're oblivious to the environment. And so the person asking questions is trying to get unbiased answers and trying to connect to somebody that's listening.
Oh, wow.
And the individual, you know, they really shouldn't pull themselves out or, you know, look unless they really have to. And sometimes we'll have two people under on two devices, like in the same room, and they'll start talking to each other. They'll start yelling at each other. So, I mean, you could potentially do it with as many people as you want underneath. It's just dependent on the devices that you have.
That is really freaky. So it's almost like the person is like the medium between. In a way,
I mean, they are opening
people, right?
themselves up, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of like the white noise. I'm sure a lot of you have. It's that. So I mean, it can get kind of overwhelming after a while. So we usually do it maybe 10
kind of like bursts.
Minutes. Yeah, because and if it's quiet, no pun intended, it's like, or if it's dead, then you're kind of like, okay, I'm done, because that noise is like.
Is like
gets
drilling
annoying
in your ear. Yeah. So you wrote a whole book about that method. Would you say that's like the best kind of like, I don't know, like practice that you've done for your ghost investigations? Have you gotten the best results with that out of everything?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's the best results for like real time, because a lot with EVPs, you don't know you caught them until you listen to 2 weeks later. I think with this, it's kind of nice because you can modify your questions in real time. So, let's say you're asking me questions and I'm saying, go to the attic. You could potentially be like, okay, let's go to the attic now because something's coming through.
I see.
So
it could develop kind of the
I think it
investigation that you're
can.
doing.
And that has prompted us to be like, oh, okay, check out this cell or check out this number or this door. So in real time, I think it offers some valuable insight.
Yes.
Whether, you take it or not. A lot of the times if we get random things coming through, we'll just kind of
Just discard
throw it out.
Sure.
We try to make sure we scan fast enough that it's not radio stations coming through. But so if things come through multiple, like we'll get full sentences that physically can't be a radio station.
Yeah.
So, and we have a new device that our friend made for us. It's called the Prick. We name things. Yeah, we name things funny, our group.
Nice.
But the Paranormal Research Instrumental Communication Tool. But he took an analog radio and modified it because he said the digital radios skip frequencies within the frequencies.
Okay.
It's kind of over my head. He's really smart.
There might be something different between an analog signal versus something that's digitized, maybe.
Yeah, so he built, it's like a Frank's box. I don't know if you're familiar with the old school Frank's box, with the analog radios.
Okay.
So he pretty much souped it up and was able to, modify the batteries and,
And
things
it'll
like that.
scroll itself through? Or?
You control it. So I can do sweep, I can do linear, I could do a certain speed. So yeah, that's like the digital part of it, but it's an analog radio, which his name's Craig Talisha. He's in Pennsylvania, but he is like beyond smart.
Wow.
Things like that. I'm like, okay,
you gotta be
how
to
do you
do all
turn it
that.
on? How do I work
Some
it?
of that stuff could be dangerous, right, too? The electrical equipment.
Well, the
that kind of
Tesla
thing.
or the coils that some
Yes.
teams use. I mean, if it
I've seen videos
discharges,
of those.
yeah, I mean, it could fry all your equipment, right?
Oh my gosh. Or yourself if you're touching it, right? Or something.
I mean, yeah.
So you're very kind of like technology driven, right? With a lot of the things that you do. What do you think about like psychics?
I've met a lot of good ones and some questionable ones.
Okay.
I think everybody kind of has the ability. I don't want to say like that they're a psychic, but I think you become sensitive, especially after you've been ghost hunting. You could kind of pick up on the environment, and I think some people, like psychics, have the ability. Because there's different things. Like some people I know can talk to loved ones. Some people can almost like feel what others are feeling, an empath. So I think they're out there. I think if you go and see one, research yourself and, always I hate to say be skeptical, but try not to give away too much information if you're
Sure.
going to one. But I've seen a lot of good ones out there. And I think when you investigate like a paranormal investigation, if you have a psychic on your group, it might be interesting to have them do like a walkthrough before you go and see what they pick up on.
Okay. With ghostly voices, when you run these investigations, is it a team of you guys? Is it what kind of does that entail? Do people have their specialties in that group?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of like a loose group of people that we met, from over the years. So mostly out of Chicago, but we have friends like all over. So myself and I call her my paranormal partner in crime, Lisa Crick, are kind of the audio people.
Okay.
My husband likes to do like the tinkering of devices, so he'll try to create something and be more technology driven. So I mean, and then like a couple of our friends are more technology people. So we're kind of like bring what you like to do and not like, and I hate calling myself an expert. I'm not an expert. I'm always learning. But there's probably like a group of 6 or 7 of us that try to investigate together, whether it be private homes or if it's like a big investigation, like a Waverly Hills or something like that.
So you mentioned like residential homes. How do people find you? Do they just Google?
I think so, because it seems like they'll send me a message through the website, or they'll find me through like the Illinois paranormal groups. So
Okay.
I'll just get like an email or phone calls, and I'll usually respond as quick as I can.
Yeah.
I try not to let it go by the wayside.
And when people reach out to you, I mean, are they like just absolutely terrified? And like, I mean, because they're coming to you almost in like confidentiality, right? Because, it's like, say somebody is a skeptic. It's like, oh my goodness, like, I don't know if I'm seeing, like, they don't know what they have firsthand, right? And they reach out to people like you to try to get some clarification.
Yeah. So I haven't had too many people like reaching out like really frantic, which is good is good in my heart, because I don't, a lot of times when you go to a house and investigate, you increase the paranormal activity, which we always warn people. And I'm not equipped, and we have people we can reach out to, but like to cleanse a house, to do saging, because if somebody wants that, I want to make sure they go to the right individual.
Okay.
So I don't claim I know how to do that, but we'll investigate and make sure they're in the right hands. But knock on wood, I haven't had a lot of people come to me like, desperate, especially like I know other groups in other states. I mean, they have children that are being affected, and that always scares me. So, people listening, if you are affected, there's a lot of great groups. You can always reach out to myself, and I can get you in the hands of a group that would help. And most shouldn't charge for services. So that's what I tell people. If your groups want to charge you a lot of money to do your house, something's not right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you're setting up at a residence, I don't know. My mind draws to. I'm a fan of like horror movies. So there's this old movie called The Entity about like a ghost that possesses like a wife and her kids at the house, and they show like both sides, the paranormal side and maybe the psychological side, and it's a very like nitty gritty movie, which I like. But I just think of like, okay, the paranormal investigators showing up to the house. They're setting up like cameras in every room and things like that. Is it much of the same? Do you guys like what is the monitoring like when you set up like that? Does somebody have to leave their house? Are you there all night, or how all does that go?
I mean, it depends on the client. Some clients want to be there, some don't want to be there. A lot of the times when someone's in their home, I feel like the activity increases, and when they're gone, it might decrease. Okay. So I mean, you have to take that all into account. I definitely set up cameras. I set up multiple cameras. I set up audio recorders and things like that. So I'm kind of old school doing that. I like to get personal experiences backed with some sort of evidence. So, to each its own how they do it. You have to make sure you listen to and review all that evidence in a timely manner. But some clients don't want any part of it. They'll leave. So it really kind of depends. I hate to say it, like every home you go into is almost like you have to do like an interview and kind of see, because sometimes the spirit's attached to the person. So if the person leaves, nothing's going to happen. They go to a new home, that spirits could have follow them.
And is it always malicious?
Not always. Okay. And I feel like sometimes people might manifest things. You get that kind of poltergeist. Turn it into a bad thing. So it's hard to say. You never know. Right. And then explaining that to a client, they might not want to hear that. They might be like, come in, cleanse my house, be done. It's like, well, it's not the house. It might be more, it's more you.
Yeah.
So
how do you even find that out? Is it just process of elimination, or how does that go?
I mean, you kind of see the house, try to investigate, see what you get, see what happens when the clients there, see their reactions. Sometimes on TV you see those shows and you kind of watch to see how they're reacting. Are they doing something? And you hate to be like that, but you gotta kind of eliminate all possibilities. Yeah.
Have you like witnessed anyone get, maybe not like witnessed, or seen somebody get like hurt by a ghost? Because I'm always seeing like the paranormal shows. They wake up with like scratch marks and things like that.
I've had a couple people get scratched. I've gotten not really pushed, but kind of like tapped harder. Okay. So we have experienced that. I will say a lot of the times in jails. Like jails kind of have that negative energy. You watch yourself. No one I've ever investigated with has ever gotten like possessed or taken over. Frankly, that would kind of scare me. I mean, we've had to kind of pull ourselves out of situations, but we do try to make sure we don't provoke. That's just not my style. So
when have you had to pull out of a situation?
So a couple jails. So the jail in West Virginia Penitentiary, it was just me and it was me and Lisa, and we were just in a cell. It wasn't a good cell. It was a cell where an inmate had been burned to death, burned alive. Oh my gosh. And it was documented, so that was all. It wasn't just like hearsay. And it just, we had actually an obelisk, and it was saying like women, the B word. It was saying like get out, and we're like, we're done. Like it was just feeling heavy. Yeah. And ooky. Like, and I hate to be cliche, but your hair was standing up on your arms. You're like, something's not right. So,
I get it.
Yeah.
So there's been instances where you've maybe been like, okay, maybe not necessarily scared out of the place, but you're like, this is definitely like going into like a dark place.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or even like Waverly Hills, I was there. We were just walking down the hallway, and I've walked down those hallways many a times. It's peaceful, and I was just like, we need to get off this floor. And then, and it's a private investigation. Nobody's there. We're just like, something's not right.
What's Waverly Hills?
Oh, Waverly Hills. So it's in Louisville, Kentucky. It is an old TB asylum. Or sanatorium. I'm sorry, not asylum.
Okay.
TB sanatorium. So back in its day, it was like the heyday for like the southern area. And they have documented about 6,000 deaths. But that's where people went who had active TB. And huge. It's just a huge facility. And you can ghost hunt there now. So they haven't really rehabbed it. And I don't think they ever will. It's just huge. And it's just a place known for like its shadow people. A lot of death there, not too many ominous things. I mean, they were really trying to help people who had TB. And, they did some unconventional things with like experimenting on the lungs, but
Sure.
it is what it is. And it's just, if you haven't gone, you could do day tours. It's just a cool place and you always get something. There's like a death tunnel where they used to take the bodies out, and
Wow.
so the patients wouldn't see. And it's like this really long tunnel that kind of goes into the ground, and then at the bottom would open up to like where the hearse or whatever would come pick up the bodies, and it's a really cool place.
That sounds like so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I can't imagine. It must be a lot of energy because that is a last stop for probably many of the people that went there, right?
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I think too is, I think it's booked solid like every day. You can investigate like every day, and every night it's like booked solid. So I always wonder, how is that energy that people are bringing into like the haunted location? Because I mean, people have been investigating this probably now for 20, 25 years. Every night a new team comes in. I always wonder like how that affects like the pre-existing
Yeah, sure.
energy. Well, are people bringing in anything malicious,
that is true.
negative? I don't know. And people provoke a lot. I mean, you see it on TV. People provoke all the time. That's just not what I like to do. But all this energy combining, like, what is it? Does it create some sort of portal or something? I mean,
what
like,
does
yeah.
it turn, like, what does it turn the energy into?
Yeah.
Could it
Or
be
what
a
does it bring
resentful
out? Or what
energy,
does it attract? I don't know.
Do you think, well, so that kind of opens up a lot of, like, things that kind of, like, tick in my head. Like, so say places that are, commonly investigated, like, the place you mentioned, or I'm thinking, like, Bachelor's Grove, too, right?
Yeah.
Like, say that the spirits and the energy there, does it change over time? Does it become resentful to being, bothered all the time?
I think it could.
Or, I mean, who all knows, right?
Oh yeah, I think it could become. I can think it become resentful. I think it could, quote unquote, quiet down. You don't know. I don't know how spirits perceive us, and I've been asking that question more and more, and I haven't really gotten an answer. Like, what do we look like? Can you see us? What do we sound like? And I'm hoping one day I get some sort of response.
Something
like, how do they,
groundbreaking.
like, are we like just a flicker of light? Are we just like a flicker of an image? Or are we just a random I don't know.
What is your theory as to why spirits still, like, inhabit places like that?
Yeah, I think it's more like a limbo, whether you're religious or not. I do have a religious background, but I think spirits, you're human, you die. I think some spirits don't want to move on. They're scared. They're kind of content. They don't want to move. I think some spirits don't know that they've passed. So they're kind of stuck in that limbo. And I think that's why we're able to communicate. They're kind of in that void space before they move on to whatever it is. Because I feel like, how is time perceived? Like, you have a loved one that has moved on. I feel like a lot of times right after they've passed, you dream about them, that you may be able to connect with them, and then all of a sudden they're gone. It's like they were in that space and now they've passed to wherever they're on. So I think sometimes they don't want to move on. I think sometimes they don't know they're dead. So it's kind of, it depends on the place, or they don't want to be judged. Like a jail, I think there's a lot of resentful because if they move on, where are they going? Like, like, quote unquote, are they going to a hell? Or are they going to just a black space? Are they going to heaven? Again, whether you're religious or not, like.
Sure. And that's a question for the ages too, right?
See,
that everybody kind of
what
talks
happens?
about.
I don't know. Yeah.
What do you think about? Man, I don't know what show it was. I mean, I grew up watching all the paranormal shows, and my parents too would record it on like DVR, and
Oh yeah.
I remember, I don't know if it was like a ship, but it was like a face, like a human face took like image like on like a tile or on a floor. Has there ever been like weird kind of manifestations of a spirit or of some energy that you've seen that isn't like, not like, because commonly you see like, okay, like an orb, or you feel like the presence of something. Has there been like a weird manifestation that's taken place, like a toaster turning on, or for that example, like seeing a face in something, or
I'm trying to think. Let's see. I mean, you always get the classic. We've had a couple TVs turn on and off. I'm always skeptical of that because, remotes and things like that. I'm trying to think of something that's really turned on.
See, that would like really freak me out.
No, I mean, that's a good point. I see TVs have lights here and there. We've had lights flicker, but again, the scientific part of me, I'm like, is it the wiring? We have everything plugged in.
Okay. We mentioned something interesting with TVs. Like, a lot of the remotes are like infrared IR, and I've heard that like that has been even utilized as like a tool for ghost investigations, and that's something that can be manipulated.
Yeah,
by
a lot of the
spirits.
cameras have like the IR light, so
Right.
you're shooting, in the black you're shooting in like the night vision mode. So, I mean, yeah, it could potentially attract spirits. I will say though, you can ghost hunt during the day and it's just as spooky at night.
Really?
I think it might not be as spooky, but you get just as much evidence.
Okay.
So I don't. The older I get and I can't stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning,
I mean, that's fair.
you can get some really good stuff during the day. I mean,
Okay.
the pictures might be a little bit different because you're not getting the black and white
Sure.
IR shots, but you still get some cool daytime shots.
That's what I've heard from other paranormal investigators, that you don't necessarily have to, lock the doors and be there till sunrise. Like, you could come there for just a couple hours and that kind of thing. So you mentioned 2 places that you've investigated, and they were out of state, not in Illinois. Do you kind of investigate like all over the U.S., or you do a lot of the Midwest, or
Yeah,
how
I
does
mean,
that go?
I try to go anywhere I can. Obviously, a lot of places you have to pay for and travel, but Illinois has a lot of places. Chicago does, but Chicago's a little bit more. You might not be able to get into some of them.
Okay.
But 2 of my favorites in Illinois are the Lincoln Theater in Decatur, Illinois, and then the Mineral Springs Hotel, which is Southern Illinois in Alton, just across the Mississippi River from St. Louis. And I've been to both of those a lot. I just feel like theaters and hotels have a good energy. I mean, just like people, go there and it's vacations and fun, and of course tragedies happen too, but it's like it's just a place that is vibrant.
So you actually notated that those 2 areas have stood out kind of between all of your investigations. Like, why all is that? Especially when you mentioned the theater. I mean, that would be so cool to investigate a theater. Like, what did you find in those investigations?
Yeah, so the Lincoln Theater, gosh, I mean, its early history was a hotel. Unfortunately, burned down back in the day, the early 1900s. They rebuilt as a theater. Every time we've gone there, we've gotten EVPs. My cousin actually captured a shadow person, and I have that picture on the website, that was just walking by the aisle towards the stage. And I think I got my best EVP I've ever gotten at the theater. So it was in the dressing room that's just below the stage, and 3 girls sitting around, and we were asking what you're going to perform there tonight, because a lot of magicians came through there as well. Clear voice, clear as day. We didn't hear it in real time. It says magic.
Oh my!
So a couple weeks later, I'm listening. I'm like, this can't be. I'm like, but it's not me. It's not my voice. The girl I was with, Nicole Strickland, she was talking kind of like at the end, so clearly it wasn't her. And Lisa Kirk was the other one with me, and it wasn't her. And funny enough, she had her audio recorder on voice activated mode. It didn't pick it up. So it picked up like us talking, but not the voice. Wow. And later on, we were researching, because there was rumors that Harry Houdini had performed there, which he did not. Troy Taylor had debunked, but Harry Blackstone did. So we found old tapes of him, and his magic sounds the same to me as the magic we've captured. And I put the side-by-side comparison. I made like a little video, and it's on the website. So I think it was him
Wow.
coming through.
Oh my god.
I really do.
That is really
And that's probably
creepy.
the best DVB I'll ever capture in my life. It's clear as day, magic.
No kidding.
Yeah. So.
Has that been a place that you've returned to?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately now, I mean, I shouldn't say unfortunately, they've done a lot of renovations. They're not really open to paranormal investigations right now, but they're doing a lot of restoration and they're bringing it back to life. But
Okay.
I've been there over 10 times, and
Wow.
I'd like to get back there one day. I've sent emails, but again, they're just doing more movies and things there now. So I haven't been back since I think 2016 was the last time.
Okay.
So, but if you're in Decatur, it's still a really cool building. They do a lot of shows, and it's just it's beautiful, and they're restoring it back to life.
So, do you have to? So some places, I mean, not every place is open specifically for paranormal investigations. Is there a lot of detective work and people you got to know, or like how all?
Yeah,
How do you propose? Like, hey, we want to set up and see if there's ghosts at your place.
It depends. I mean, you're absolutely right. Some places you pay a fee. The well-known places, if you want to investigate private, here's your fee. Here's a public investigation, you'll pay less. Some places are not open to it, so that's when you try to be a salesperson, which I'm not the greatest. But you try to contact them. Some will have absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't trespass. That's just not me.
Sure.
I know some people might want to do that, but just be mindful. There's cameras everywhere. Is it really worth it?
Sure.
So I mean, it really depends on the location. If they'll let you in or you have to pay. And I will say if it becomes popular or discovered, then you're going to probably have to pay more than other
sure.
places. So, and some places, like if it's a quieter, lesser known place, they might let you investigate, but they don't want you to put it on your website or release it to the public.
I gotcha.
So, because we've done some like local museums more on the down low, which cool locations, but they don't really want to advertise it per se. So
That's understandable.
yeah.
So that was the theater. What kind of differed Mineral Springs from your other investigations?
Yeah, so Mineral Springs, another cool location. Started off as a meat packing plant right next to the Mississippi. It's in Alton, which is known as like the what do they call it? Like the smallest haunted town in the U.S.
That's what I thought I heard. Just looking at like oddity websites.
Yeah,
and things like
it's
that.
got a lot of weird. It's got the Pisa bird down there for the people that like cryptids.
Yeah.
I always call it crypto. No, cryptids. The first penitentiary in Illinois was built in Alton off the limestone. That's a whole other. It's a whole other theory that holds paranormal activity, but it was a meatpacking plant. They were going to build a little bit more, discovered natural springs. Of course, back in the day, that was the rage for medicinal purposes. Became a hotel. It had its tragedies. Had some assumed suicides. Unfortunately, some drownings in the pool. Things like that. So there's just a wide variety of hauntings. It's kind of a cool place because it's like you got the pool in the basement. There's apartments kind of upstairs. There's shops. It's just got a really cool vibe. Every time we've been there, whatever's there doesn't really like me. It tends to swear at me, which is fine. And we've captured some weird things, some audio. Get the F out. In the pool, we've seen shadows galore. And we've gotten, like, I call it my screech, which I know we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That was one of the places I think I captured it the most, which is kind of like this weird bird sounding type of, like, entity. I don't know what you even call it. And it's just a cool place. And even now it's open. It's got, like, mom and pop shops, a lot of metaphysical. It's got a haunted museum. It's just cool vibe.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and it's just, like, I don't know if it's just because it's a combination. And over the years, it's lived to see another day, and it's just eerie anytime you go in there, whether it's day or night, and it just feels like somebody wants to talk to you every time you're going in there.
Really?
Yeah.
You just feel the energy of the place.
Yeah, and I know it's right by the Mississippi, so there's a theory that the water is giving it continuous energy. It had the springs back in the day. It's a cool spot. The whole city of Alton, like, is a really interesting, like, vibe. There's a couple other haunted locations too that are just in that vicinity. But yeah, so if you're ever down, it's by St. Louis, not too far.
So you mentioned you recorded a shriek or a screech. is that something that's only happened in that investigation, or is that something that kind of reoccurs? Because I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's actually in my one book. I was probably about like 2 years ago. I was like, I finally was like, we keep getting this like screech. Sometimes it sounds kind of breathy, but it's more. We were laughing like maybe it's the Pisa bird that came and visited us in Alton, because we thought we captured it in Mineral Springs first. But then I went back and I said, okay, let me start documenting where I captured it. And we actually captured it Waverly Hills for the first time. And gosh, I got to look at my notes back in 2006, I think. And we've caught it in private investigation, private homes. And, the people that say, oh, it's just your recorder. I've captured it on probably 6 different devices. So 3 different audio recorders that I own, 2 different cameras, another individual's camera, a full spectrum camera. So I'm like, it's not just the device. And we've captured it when there's nobody there. So it's not like somebody walking around breathing into it. It's not like
sure.
It doesn't sound like that. And we've captured it sometimes in real time where we react to it like, whoa. And sometimes we don't even hear it. So I think we're up to... Funny enough, I think we're up to like 33 times we've captured it. I just was listening to audio we went to Waverly Hills back in May, and it came again.
Wow.
And it's like and it's not us.
What
like,
do you make of that?
I have no clue. And so I've been wondering if I've been told maybe it's like a spirit guide following me, and I was like, well, why don't they just say something? Why do they got to do some breathy, screechy thing? I don't know.
That's really interesting.
I don't know.
And honestly...
I don't know.
You're very unique in the fact that like you're keeping track of like all those little things, but I mean that's how you kind of find patterns.
I don't know.
Mean,
yeah,
you wouldn't know unless you were doing all
that. Is it
that.
just something that's popping in? Like, hey, what are they doing? All right. Which the funny thing enough is I've been noticing. I've just been going over audio from some of our investigations in the last couple of weeks. We've been getting popping noises. I'm calling it the paranormal popping, but we'll get like a weird pop. And I'm like, I got to go back and start seeing like how many times it's the same exact pop. Like every like investigation. So I'm like, is it equipment? But it doesn't sound like equipment. So it's like, something doesn't seem right. So the screech is definitely odd. And I got to go back and see like with this new paranormal popping I'm calling. It's like, it's just weird. So what? I don't know if there's like other entities that pop in and see what we're doing. I don't know if anybody else has gotten it, because it's like a screech. And I on the website I put together all 32 times that I've captured. I got to update it, so you'll hear, and I have it listed each place that I've captured it and on what I've captured it. So there's a camera, a recorder. In Mineral Springs though is really cool. I captured it about 10 seconds after my fellow investigator Jim captured it. So his camera was in one spot. My camera was probably like 200 feet away, like kind of in a line where it would go. And he got it, and then I got it.
Oh, really?
So it's the same exact thing, and we're nowhere to be found. So it's not us.
No kidding.
I don't know what it is.
Do you So you guys are obviously one group, but there's a lot of paranormal investigators. I mean, there's so many. Do you guys ever like share information or bounce ideas off of them, or is it kind of like cutthroat where they don't want to kind of share? Or it's like you say, okay, I keep getting this screech. Is anybody else like? I mean, have you ever been able to reach out and get confirmations of things? Is there a community that's very open to exchanging ideas and information? Yeah,
I mean, I haven't really found an open community. It seems like on Facebook there's like little groups. Paranormal Chicago is great. I know I joined that recently, and that's Jack Chavez runs that, and that seems like very promising. And there's like a Illinois Midwest paranormal group on Facebook, and I'm glad I found those because they'll ask for people if they want to come investigate. So I'm hoping to put it out there more. I hope it's not. It seems like some people are more cutthroat, but I feel like it's hard to steal evidence because it's a lot of times your voice, like how you going to steal. I mean, like how you going to steal people's stuff, but to each its own. And if you can make a career out of this, great. This is not my day job. It doesn't pay the bills. So I'm just doing it to try to prove that there's something. I don't know what it is.
Sure.
So, I mean, I do try to ask around to, like, people I know in local groups, but I haven't really gotten, I'll listen to people's evidence. A lot of times I'll send it to people and be like, what does this say? And I won't tell them. I'd be like, hey, I got this clip. Can you listen to it?
I gotcha.
And they'll be like, oh, it says, how are you? And then somebody else might be like, oh, it says, help me. And I'm like, okay, then, we're not on the same page.
Sure.
But I hope, people don't get cutthroat out there. We're just all trying to prove something. And this is really cool stuff. So, yeah.
Have you guys ever done like, I don't even know if this is a thing. Has there ever been like maybe like parallel investigations where like you're a group and another group are teaming up to tackle a place, or is there not that much kind of uniformity for that?
Oh yeah, we've done that, and people are open to that. That Midwest Paranormal group on Facebook. A lot of times they'll, like the bigger locations like Waverly Hills, you'll have to pay like a set fee. So I think they're like $1,000, and you could have like up to 10 people. So a lot of times, if you don't have 10 people, you might reach out to a group. Hey, and then you can at least, everybody's getting into a location, and then you're paying like the minimal fee, so you're not paying an exorbitant amount of money. But definitely depending on the place, we've pulled in other people and teams. Smaller places, it might not be as easy, but yeah, a lot of teams are open to that. So it just depends.
Do you prefer investigating a place with a lot of people?
No.
And why is that?
I don't trust what other people do. And again, I go back to like their energy. I don't, if they have bad intentions, if they provoke, I don't want to be on the back end of that when I walked into an area that they just did some weird, God knows what. So I don't, because I'm very respectful, even if it's like a jail. So no, because I shouldn't say trust. I just don't know other people's intentions. So I'd rather go into a place and like, we'll walk in and introduce ourselves, say, hey, can we, we're going to be here for the next 8 hours. Can we speak with you? So that's just me. The more I've been doing it, I just like to kind of get a place to myself if I can with people I know.
And trust probably, right?
Yeah.
Kind of interconnected.
I mean, I hate to say it, even like your equipment, like, unfortunately, years ago, we were at a public investigation, and one of our investigators, someone took his camera, and it wasn't cheap. I mean, this is almost like 20 years ago, but still. And he didn't misplace it. He knew exactly where it was.
It wasn't the ghosts, or
no. And we had asked like the people that were running it and the workers there. We thought, maybe they grabbed it because they didn't want it to be sitting there, but no, he never found it.
That is awful.
So, yeah.
It's better just to go with people you trust,
Yeah, you hate to be like that, but again, I do it more for like the energy. Like I know so and I trust them, and or something weird is happening, or like you trust people, and yeah.
Have you ever gotten like injured investigating a place, like trip and fall, or?
I haven't, but I do know an individual. He did fall and break his hip. He was older. He was at Crown Point Jail. I wasn't with him, but he was an individual I used to investigate. His name's Stan Suho. He passed a few years ago. He was kind of one of those pioneers in the field. He created a lot of equipment too, but he had tripped in the stairs and he broke his hip. So I mean, you can get hurt. So a lot of places, if they tell you don't go to a certain area, don't listen to the guides and have your flashlight, because even if it's broad daylight, if you're in the basement, it could be pitch dark. It could be dangerous in some places, even if they have it roped. If it's a tape or something, you don't see it and you walk right past it. I've seen places you'd fall right through the floor.
Wow.
So I mean,
oh my gosh,
and you'll sign a waiver, but I mean, a waiver's a waiver.
Is it often like you'll get permission to investigate a place, but there's off-limit spots?
Oh yeah,
that kind of thing?
A lot of places, especially if they're doing renovations and they're older. Oh yeah, I'd say it's very common.
I gotcha.
Most places lock doors nowadays, or they'll have some sort of like pretty stable, whether it be boards, so you can't really physically get in there. But there's always places to kind of go, so be careful. And most places won't allow kids, so I would say I wouldn't bring your children unless they were like 16.
Sure.
I mean people do, but
really, oh my gosh.
Yeah, most places you have to be at least 16.
Yeah, I mean that's probably fair, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, old enough to sign a waiver or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
You mentioned something very interesting before we started recording that I kind of want to revisit. You mentioned animals used in investigations. Now, do you have any firsthand, is that something you guys have ever employed? Because I've definitely heard that where cats and dogs are, very rare. I've even heard like horses and other animals like that are very reactive to energies and spirits.
Yeah, to give it context, I was afraid that he was going to make me wear a snake or something during this podcast. But in all seriousness, I was like, I have not used any sort of dogs or cats, but we were on a private investigation in Indiana, and the owner's dogs, we were just watching them, and the cat, they were just following something, and they were just on edge and tense, and anytime something was going to happen, like, they were just watching it. So we were watching them, like, watch, and there was a lot of stuff that went down there. And we had thought about, like, hey, you could potentially, probably you could train a dog easier than a cat to come with you on investigations. Obviously, you'd have to get permission. Some places probably wouldn't allow it. So I'd ask, do your reptiles or snakes sense anything? And I think it's possible. I mean, I really think animals have a better sixth sense than humans do in some regards. Like, I feel like sometimes we maybe block it off where animals don't. So I don't know of any groups really local, and I could be wrong, so that would be interesting to hear, that are using like a dog or like, I don't know how well a cat would. I don't know cats that well. I don't know how well they would behave, but I feel like a dog.
I don't know how well they'd behave. A dog for sure, but I've totally seen. I mean, cats, the hair stands up on them and that kind of thing. I mean, you were definitely onto something because, with the reptiles, and I mentioned this before too. If it's about to storm and that's like just kind of like lingering in the air. I mean, my snakes totally feel that, and they go kind of crazy. And there is kind of like an unwritten rule, like if you're dealing with hot species, venomous species, or dangerous snake, giant constrictors, you don't really want to work with them when it's about to rain. It's like the worst when they're about to shed because they're almost blind, and when it's about to rain, it's like the worst time to interact with them. So I mean, I don't know. That almost makes me want to. I think it might be the easiest to convince somebody to bring a snake instead of a dog, because snakes like poop as often as they eat. So I feed mine like once a month. Snakes are, reptiles, hypoallergenic. They don't have any fur or dander. Nobody's allergic to them. So I mean,
there you go.
Maybe.
we got to come up with the name with the paranormal.
Because everything has to be like
an
acronym, right?
I know. That's kind of, I know. We do that too. I'm not going to lie. Because our group is the American Spectral Society. So shorten that. What do you think that spells out?
Yeah. That's great.
But yeah, we do that as a joke. We're just like a group of friends doing it. But I think animals, just like they say young children. I mean, they say what children, like under the age of 3 or 2, can sense things. I think it's the same with animals. It's like they're not.
It could be almost like a bias thing.
Or they're not manipulate. Manipulate's not the right word. They're not like an innocence. Tarnished innocence.
Sure,
there you
innocence
go.
Thing, right?
There you go.
I mean, a dog, right? You cannot make a dog like not like. I mean, it's so hard to do. Like dog.
And they see differently than us. They hear differently than us. So. Right. I mean, who knows what frequency?
It's like a perspective that hasn't been manipulated, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would think about it.
That might be.
Let me know. I'd like to go on an investigation with you. With the snake gets out. I'm like, I'm out of here.
That's gonna probably be like double waivers that we gotta sign.
I mean, I feel like some places don't care. I mean, to each its own. You probably, like you said, some places wouldn't even really care. So I mean,
no kidding. Have you ever had a paranormal experience in a place that you wouldn't even think, like you're in line at the grocery store or something like that? I mean, has there just been some like weird energy, like just doing something very mundane?
I will say 2 years ago, I was on a work trip, of course, in the haunted city of New Orleans, but my hotel room at night, I had gone on like a ghost tour, did the cemeteries and all that, 3 a.m., and I'm not kidding you, I know it's so cliche, woke up, my TV turned on, and my audio recorder turned on from like the cemetery.
Oh my goodness.
And it's funny because then the next day, one of my colleagues who's not into this at all, she was like, did you bang on my door at 3:30 in the morning? I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, somebody banged on my door. I'm like, first of all, I don't even know what floor you're on. I would never do that to you.
Right.
So that was kind of a weird.
Wow.
I'm like, did something follow us back from the cemetery? Because I did not walk out backwards like you're supposed to from the New Orleans cemetery. I didn't realize
I didn't know that.
I guess you're supposed to walk out backwards and leave the spirits
No
there.
kidding.
So they said, oh, it followed you. I'm like, well, I'm Catholic. I'll tell them to go back because it's all Catholic cemeteries that we went to. But that was kind of weird. Like my hotel room, which I didn't think anything of. And I came back, was a cool tour. And I was like, huh. Grocery line? No. I'm trying to think now. Like,
Oh, I mean, that's good.
but yeah, so you never know.
I mean, I guess anything could
Yeah,
happen,
and don't
right?
think bathrooms aren't haunted, because they are. And I think there's a couple books out there on haunted bathrooms as well.
Really?
But yeah, so a lot of these haunted places like Mineral Springs, the bathroom is known to be haunted. So don't let your guard down in bathrooms, because surprise.
Honestly, when I was a kid, we played like Bloody Mary, like
That's
staying into
true.
the bathroom, and that scarred me for so long.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting, you guys are enthusiasts in what you do. You say you're not an expert, but I mean, you're an author, and you've done over 100 investigations. So I mean, at what point are you an expert? You've been doing it for 20 years. So I would like to call you an expert. You guys are, you love what you do, but I mean, you're also doing like a service for people when you do, residential, right? It's people that are seeking some sort of closure, right? Or some sort of understanding. So you guys have that is that like a service that you always offer for somebody that could reach out to you?
And I think a lot of times with haunted locations that are in somebody's home, we've been finding, especially now in the technology age, the EMF is because their computers are on. Okay. I remember we did the fish tank. It was off the charts at what it was like giving out, like the energy. And like one of our investigators, her name's Sherry, she's very sensitive to like any sort of like a man-made electrical field. She's like, oh man, this house is buzzing. It was like the alarm clock, the computer, the Wi-Fi, which creating this massive EMF bubble, which for some people causes headaches, causes irritability, causes like inability to sleep, and in severe cases, hallucinations. So they say don't sleep with your phone next to your head. I mean, there's some truth to that. So a lot of the times if we can go to a place like, your place isn't haunted, just there's so much electricity buzzing through the air. We did a home in Chicago next to a transformer. There's not a lot you could do about that. The transformer was literally like 15 feet away from their bedroom window, and it was just off the charts, all the electromagnetic, and it's like, you can't really, that's hard. What are you going to do?
Wait, what's the there's not
because
really
they're not going to shut it. I mean, can they move it? I don't know. That would probably take a lot of.
Because my electrical bill is like $600 a month with all of the heaters and stuff I run for the animals. I mean,
but I mean, all these radio waves too. That could create. I don't want to call it like a false positive, but it could create some things that it's not paranormal. It's just all this buzzing from all this technology. So. Sometimes people are happy that we're like, your house isn't haunted. Just try to, shut off some of the equipment.
So, Nicole, where can people find you in your group? I know you guys. What is your website? Yeah,
so the website is ghostly-voices.com. I run it, and I have all the evidence on there, all the places I've been to. You can contact me there. We're also on Facebook, Ghostly-Voices. You can find us there, Nicole Tito. You search my name, I know ghost stuff comes up. But yeah, I mean, check out the evidence. If you hate it, love it, let me know. And I'm always trying to debunk things. So I have like a little section for debunking and making sure you tag things when you're recording, just so you know it's not like your stomach's an evil demon when it grumbles. But yeah, I always love feedback. Or if you know anything about a screech or you've captured it, please. I've been trying to circulate that the last 2 years. Like, does anybody else getting this weird pterodactyl sounding like, I don't even know if a pterodactyl sounded like that, but bird,
right, like a squawk or something. Is there anything like upcoming with Ghostly Voices? Do you guys have investigations planned out?
Yeah, we have a couple local that I could probably talk about more after we go there. And then we're going to be planning next year a couple big ones. We want to go to Trans-Allegheny Asylum. Okay. Yeah, and then we want to go up to Mackinac Island. It's going to be a big one next year.
Where's that?
Michigan. So, yeah, Mackinac is a cool old haunted. You got to take a ferry to get over there.
Oh, wow.
We just went to Waverly like a month and a half ago, so I'm going through all that evidence. We saw a lot there, so I'm hoping I've captured some stuff. So that'll be up on the website soon. So you got to go over all the evidence. So just.
So does that take a long time?
Yeah.
Then?
Oh yeah.
I mean, to go through
it depends. Yeah, especially video, because you got to really pay attention.
Right?
Yeah. Audio is not as bad, but it still takes time.
Understandable. So we'll be sure to put up all your socials up on the screen,
Thank
website
you.
Links. And Nicole, I really want to thank you for coming down to the studio and talking paranormal with me. So
yeah.
Thank you so
much.
much.
We're going to do a live one. Snakes.
Live one with snakes next. Next, for sure.
In a haunted location, see what happens.
Awesome.